Hey YouTube, Snowman here. Just finished up my day, just pulled into the garage, and I have a little story time. Story time with Snowman. So, I'm sure a lot of you guys have had someone in your life influence you in a positive way or maybe even a negative way. Well, this story just so happens to be a story of where someone influenced and made a good impression on my life and helped me. Story goes back to 2001, 2002. I had graduated college. I graduated from Indiana University of Pennsylvania in 1999, and I got an apartment and I got a job working at a alternative school for troubled kids, troubled youth. It was a stressful job. It was my first job out of school, and it was stressful. It was working with at-risk youth at a private school, and some of the kids, young men there, were deeply disturbed. They were abused. They came from broken homes. So I'm sure you guys could figure out that it was a pretty challenging job. You dealt with a lot of emotions and things like that. Well, when I wasn't at my job, I was stressed out. You know, I was lost. I was lost. You know, I spent 4 years going to school. I got my degree, and I entered the workforce. And you know, for my first job ever. It was pretty good. I think I made $14 an hour, and it was full-time work. You didn't have the weekends off, and my shift started at 2:30, so I worked the second shift, 2:30 to like 10:30, 11 o'clock, something like that. So I'm sure you guys can figure it out that lifestyle, you know, it fit for me at the time. You know, I'd sleep in so I could stay up late. I did a lot of partying and just working and partying and doing my thing, and you know, I was doing a lot of things for work and for other people, but one thing I wasn't doing is I wasn't doing enough for myself. It was just my wife and I. We weren't married at the time, living in a little apartment in a really nice area. Um, you know, we didn't have a lot, and like I said, we did a lot of partying, and one thing that I was struggling with was just that transition from like young adulthood. It was tough for me. You know, I was like 23, 24 years old, just still trying to figure out what life was all about, and you know, life would throw curveballs at me, and I would get stressed out, and I didn't have a coping skill. I didn't have an appropriate coping skill. You know, I remember having just outbursts, and I'd call them fits of rage, and just emotional ups and downs. I didn't handle stress very well at the time, and this is where the story kind of starts. Well, I had a neighbor, and he was a logger. He was a tree cutter. He was a single dad, and he was raising his two children, and he was running a fairly good-sized clearing operation, clearing crew. He would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, he would drop his kids off at daycare, or not daycare, his mom's house, and his mom would get the kids off to school. Well, I spent a lot of time with him. His name was Doug. His name is Doug. I spent a lot of time with him, and we formed a pretty good friendship. He took a liking to me. And he was one of them kind of people where, like, we all know people like this. He was a man of service. He wanted to help people. And there was a few times where Doug would witness, you know, my behaviors and my outbursts, and you know, he'd pull me to the side, and he would kind of like, he would counsel me. and, help me through them. And he was one of them kind of guys that he was just like, quit your crying, quit your babying, you know, grow up. He had a nickname for me. He called me Flounder. He goes, you need to stop floundering around, Flounder. He didn't baby me. Well, I was working at that school for at-risk children, and in 2002, I had enough. I quit my job. I didn't have a job. And Doug says, you know what? You need to get your mind right. You need help. You're not doing things the right way. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. I said, Doug, what do you want me to do? He goes, you want to get your mind right? I said, Doug, I do. It's like, can you help me? He goes, I can help you. He goes, I need a guy to run a skidder, cable skidder, this summer for my crew. He goes, I'll get your mind right. That guy, he put me in a 548 John Deere, open cab, no grapple. It was a straight cable skidder. He handed me 5 choker chains. He handed me a hook. Well, actually, I made my own hook for pulling the chain. Up underneath and up and around the logs to choke them. And he took me on a clearing job out in Imperial, PA. And it was out near the Pittsburgh International Airport. And he's like, all right. He goes, be at my house. He was my next door neighbor. He's like, be ready at 3 o'clock in the morning. So Doug had his 2 children. One was asleep and he was carrying them. And the other daughter, she was a little older. Got his kids in the truck. He says, hop in. I hopped in. Took his kids to his mom's house. And we drove. And, Doug was helping me, but Doug was also going through some rough patches in his life too. And he shared a lot of information with me, a lot of personal problems he was having. So he was helping me, and I was also helping him. So I had never really been around power saws, and I'd never really been around heavy equipment. I was green. I was as green as they come, and I'd put on some weight, and I was not in good shape, and I was lost. Well, Doug got me in that skidder, and I was a skidding maniac. I was running around. He was screaming at me. Calling me names. This guy basically just reduced me to nothing. He busted me down, and then he helped build me back up from the ground up. And that summer, I skidded logs for him all summer. And I got myself in shape. I was dragging that cable. I was choking logs. I was bucking the loads and the skids. I was running his log truck, loading his log truck. I learned a lot of things, not just about logging and about how to operate machinery and run a power saw. I learned a lot about myself. And this guy, he paid me. He paid me. He paid me well that summer. He gave me cash. He let my wife go over to his house and clean for him, and he paid her. He'd let me borrow his truck. Sometimes we'd watch his kids when he had things to do. Doug said he was going to get my mind right, and Doug did. He helped me take a step in my life and make changes, and taught me some coping skills and how to man up and not be, soft. He taught me how to, if I want something, go get it, go for it. And he told me to stop being so sensitive, and he was one of them guys. He's like, just go out and get it. Go out and get it. Anybody gets in your way, He taught me, you know, at that time, he's just like, don't let anybody get in your way. Be strong and don't worry about anything. Just, and he was pretty religious too. He didn't preach, but you know, he said his boss was a Jewish carpenter. He was religious. He put his faith in God, and so that summer he helped me and I helped him. There were days where there was no work. He's like, "Hey, Dawn," he goes, "I just gonna need to go around and make some bids." He goes, "Can you just ride around with me and so we can talk, so I can talk to you?" And it was like we formed a friendship. I was helping him, he was helping me. So I mean, that's my story. And the one thing that I want to show you guys is he's pretty artistic. His daughter, she's also very artistic. He's real handy, real smart. His whole family, they're just really just crafty and good at making stuff. But he made something for me at the one sawmill that he would take his logs to. The saw, it was a band. It was a saw band. It wasn't like a circular blade. It's like a big bandsaw, huge. Well, it blew out and it was laying there, and he got a piece of it. And I think his uncle had a plasma cutter, and he cut out pieces of this bandsaw, and I'm sure bandsaws are just wicked steel, really tough, but he made a bunch of these knives. And I'm just going to show it to you. Okay? This is like top secret. Only a few of these were made, and I have one. And it's kind of cool. I'm going to show it to you. This is called it's called a DB shank. His name's Doug. I'm not going to say his last name, but DB shank. It has a piece of curly walnut for the handle. That lighting's not real good in here, but he made this. I mean, I don't think you can see it, but he tempered it, hardened it. It keeps a pretty good edge. And this knife, my brother really likes this knife. My brother, he'll come over, he'll put it in his pocket, and he'll call me or we'll talk. He's like, "Hey, just so you know, I borrowed the DB shank." I'm like, "You what?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he had this for some time, and it came up, and he brought it back to me. Well, when I started watching Buckin and you know, watching the axe building, you know, you see Buckin, he uses a spoke shave to take the handles down and take the varnish off some of those handles that already come with a factory varnish. This knife takes the varnish, and we actually use this to take axe handles down and help with our fitmanship with the, you know, when we're hafting axe heads. And it's just so amazing and so cool that something that happened in 2001, 2002 within the logging community, you know, the logging community isn't just impacting me now. It impacted me back then. And I think there is a certain something about people that work in the woods and cut trees, and they're just, I don't know. Everybody I've ever met, most of them are really, really good, genuine, just awesome people. And basically that's the story of my DB shank and my good friend Doug teaching me about life. So, you know, if I just think, and to this day I carry that with me a lot, you know, and I want to do the same thing that Doug did for me, for somebody else, and I do. But what Doug did for me in my life at that time in my life was important, and it helped mold me and influence me and helped me become the person that I am today, and I carry that with me everywhere I go. So I don't know, Doug, if you'll ever see this video or whatever, but I still talk to Doug once in a while. He's a hard man to get a hold of. He's still out there getting it. Excuse me. He's still out there cutting. He's in the firewood right now. I don't think he's into the big timber, but he might be. But I know he does a lot of firewood stuff. So there just might be something about firewood. I don't know what it is. It is a pretty special thing, and I like being involved in it too. But well, that's pretty much the end of story time with Snowman. But listen to my story, and if you see a young person, I made a video a couple of days ago that said we need to nurture our young people. You know, our youth are our future, and we need to bring them in the right way, and we need to help them whenever we see they're going down the wrong path. You know, it could be something as simple as just helping the neighbor kid change a flat tire, or helping the neighbor kid work on his car, or you just see someone needs help, or just need someone to talk to. Just take some time out and do it. Because those are the things that people remember and carry with them for the rest of their lives. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed my story. I appreciate you being here on my channel. And jump in the comments and let me know. Tell me maybe who your influence was, or who helped you in your life during a hard time. So, hey, I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys in the comments. And everyone have a good night. It's Friday night. Be safe out there. If you're drinking, stay home. If you're drinking, get someone to give you a ride. And the people that are in your life that you love, give them a hug. Tell them you love them. And everyone have a good weekend. And I'll be seeing you guys soon. Over and out. This is the Snowman.